The security footage would later show the exact moment Ryan Whitmore's carefully constructed life began to crack. There he stood, worth $3 billion, dressed in a suit that cost more than most people's cars, frozen in aisle 7 of a half-empty supermarket at 11 p.m., watching a young mother beg the cashier for mercy. Her baby was screaming. Her card had been declined, and the formula she desperately needed was being taken away. Most people walked past without a second glance. Ryan should have too, but something in her exhausted, terrified eyes reminded him of a pain he'd been running from for 2 years. What happened next would destroy his reputation, fracture his billion-dollar empire, and somehow give him the only thing money could never buy. If you want to see how far compassion can take a broken man, stay until the end of this story. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this journey travels. Ryan Whitmore's driver had called in sick. That's what started everything. That's the detail that changed 3 lives forever. If Marcus had been behind the wheel that Wednesday night, Ryan would have gone straight home to his silent mansion in Greenwich, poured himself the usual whiskey, checked on Mason through the crack in his bedroom door, and collapsed into bed without speaking to another human being. The routine had worked for 743 days, ever since Sarah's funeral, but Marcus wasn't there. So Ryan drove himself. The office had been brutal. 15 hours of back-to-back meetings, a conference call with Tokyo that went sideways, and a screaming match with his COO about the acquisition that was hemorrhaging money. Ryan's head of security had texted 3 times asking if he needed the car. He'd ignored all of them. He just wanted to get home. The Whole Foods near the office had closed early for renovations, which is how Ryan ended up pulling his Aston Martin into the parking lot of a Shaw's supermarket in a neighborhood he'd never noticed before. The kind of place with flickering fluorescent lights and a shopping cart corral that was more rust than metal. It was 10:47 p.m. Inside, the store had that desperate late-night energy. Exhausted third-shift workers grabbing coffee, a couple of teenagers loitering near the energy drinks, an elderly man reading cereal boxes like they contained the secrets of the universe. Ryan grabbed a basket and headed for the prepared food section. He had no idea what was in his own refrigerator. Probably nothing. The housekeeper kept it stocked, but Ryan couldn't remember the last time he'd actually looked. He was reaching for a pre-made Caesar salad when he heard the crying. Not unusual crying. Not the regular fussing of a tired kid. This was the desperate, hungry wail of an infant who'd been screaming for too long. Ryan's hand froze on the plastic container. He hadn't heard that sound since Mason was a baby. Since Sarah was still alive and they'd take turns walking the hallway at 3 a.m., bouncing their son until he finally settled. The memory hit him like a punch to the throat. He turned toward the sound. 3 aisles over, near the baby section, he could see her. Young woman, maybe 30, with dark hair pulled into a messy ponytail. She was holding an infant against her shoulder with one hand while trying to manage a shopping basket with the other. A little girl, maybe 4 years old, clung to her jacket. Ryan watched her grab 2 containers of formula, check the price, put one back. Grab a box of diapers, check the price, put it back. Her movements had a practiced efficiency that made his chest tight. He picked up his salad and walked toward the checkout. That's when everything went wrong. The woman was already at the register when Ryan got there, 2 lanes over. He wasn't trying to eavesdrop. The store was quiet enough that sound carried. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but your card's been declined." The cashier, a tired-looking woman in her 50s, didn't sound mean about it, just matter of fact. "That's not possible," the young mother's voice cracked. "I just deposited my paycheck yesterday. Can you try it again?" The cashier swiped the card 3 more times, same result. "Do you have another form of payment?" The woman shifted the screaming baby to her other shoulder. Her hands were shaking. "Can you take off some items? Just ring up the formula and the bread. I need the formula." The little girl tugged on her mother's jacket. "Mommy, why is Emma crying so loud?" "She's just hungry, baby. She's okay." But the infant wasn't okay. The crying had reached that pitch that made every parent in a 50-foot radius wince. Ryan stood there holding his $18 salad and watched the woman pull items from her pile. Diapers, gone. A bag of apples, gone. A package of chicken breasts, gone. Crackers, peanut butter, a bunch of bananas. All of it put aside until only 2 containers of formula and a loaf of white bread remained. "Okay," the woman said quietly. Just these. How much? $47.63. The woman swiped her card again. Declined. She tried another card from her wallet. Declined. The baby's screaming intensified. Mommy? The little girl's voice was small. Is Emma going to be hungry all night? That's when something inside Ryan just broke. He didn't think about it, didn't calculate the optics or consider the implications. He just walked over and said, I've got it. The woman turned, startled. Up close, Ryan could see the dark circles under her eyes, the stain on her jacket that looked like spit up, the way her hands trembled as she held her baby. I'm sorry, what? Your groceries. I'll pay for them. He pulled out his wallet and handed his Black American Express to the cashier before the woman could respond. Sir, you don't have to. It's done. Ryan's voice came out harder than he meant it to. He softened it. Please, let me help. The woman stared at him like he'd just offered to buy her a car. I can't accept that. I don't even know you. Then we're even. I don't know you either. Ryan looked at the pile of groceries she'd removed. Put the rest back. No, I really can't. Is your baby hungry? The question stopped her. The infant was still wailing against her shoulder, that desperate sound that every parent recognizes as genuine need. Yes, she whispered. Then put the groceries back and let me pay for it, please. For a long moment, she just looked at him. Ryan saw her trying to figure out the angle, the catch, the price she'd have to pay later. He knew that look. Sarah used to tell him about women who couldn't accept help because they'd been conditioned to believe nothing came free. The little girl tugged her mother's jacket again. Mommy, the nice man wants to help Emma. Something in the woman's face crumbled. She nodded once, quickly, and started putting items back on the belt. The diapers, the chicken, the apples. When she was done, Ryan added a rotisserie chicken, a gallon of milk, a bag of rice, and 3 more containers of formula. Sir, that's too much. Babies eat a lot, Ryan said simply. Trust me. The total came to $237. Ryan didn't blink. The cashier handed him the receipt and started bagging everything. The woman stood there looking like she might cry or bolt. Ryan couldn't tell which. Thank you, she finally managed. I don't know what to say, thank you. Ryan nodded. He should have walked away then. Paid for his own groceries, gone home, felt good about his random act of kindness. Instead, he heard himself ask, How are you getting home? Bus. The 47 stops 3 blocks from here. He glanced at the window. It was starting to sleep. With 2 kids and all these groceries? We've done it before. The little girl was already reaching for one of the bags, trying to help her mother. She couldn't have weighed more than 40 pounds, and she was preparing to carry groceries through freezing rain to a bus stop. Let me drive you, Ryan said. Now the woman did look scared. I appreciate what you did, but I'm not getting in a car with a stranger. Smart. You shouldn't. Ryan pulled out his phone and opened a tab showing his Wikipedia page. My name is Ryan Whitmore. I run Whitmore Technologies. That's me. I have a 6-year-old son at home with a nanny right now. I'm not going to hurt you. I can't watch you take a bus in this weather. She stared at the phone screen, then back at him. You're serious? Very. You're that Ryan Whitmore, the one on the cover of Forbes last month? Unfortunately. The woman laughed, a short, startled sound that seemed to surprise her. What the hell is a billionaire doing at Shaw's at 11 o'clock on a Wednesday night? My driver called in sick. What's your excuse? She looked down at her screaming baby. Same thing I do every night. Survive. Ryan picked up her grocery bags. My car's outside. Black Aston Martin. You can take a picture of my license plate and text it to someone before you get in. I'll wait. She studied him for another long moment, then pulled out her phone and did exactly that. Took a photo of his face, his license plate, sent it somewhere. Smart. Okay, she said finally. But I'm sitting in back with the kids. Fair enough. The drive through the city started in silence. Ryan drove carefully through the sleet while the woman sat in back, her baby finally quiet now that she'd gotten a bottle in her. The little girl was pressed against the window, watching the lights go by. I'm Emily, by the way, the woman said after they'd gone about 10 minutes. Emily Carter. This is Emma, and that's Sophie. Ryan, but you already knew that. Sophie, say thank you to Mr. Whitmore. Thank you, Mr. Whitmore, the little girl said solemnly. You're nice. Most people aren't nice when mommy's card doesn't work. The casual way she said it made Ryan's jaw clench. How many times had this kid watched her mother get humiliated at a checkout line? You don't have to call me Mr. Whitmore, he said, catching the girl's eyes in the rearview mirror. Ryan's fine. Mommy says we have to use grown-up names for grown-ups we don't know. Your mom's right. Mr. Whitmore it is. Emily gave him an address in Dorchester. Ryan knew the neighborhood, not from personal experience, but from crime statistics his security team sent him quarterly. Not the worst area in Boston, but close enough to make him uncomfortable about leaving her there. The building was exactly what he expected. 6-story brick walk-up with a broken front door and graffiti on the walls. Emily directed him to park in front and started gathering her bags. Let me help you carry these up, Ryan said. You've done enough. I'm already here. What's a few more minutes? She hesitated, then nodded. 3rd floor. Ryan grabbed as many bags as he could carry and followed her into the building. The stairwell smelled like cigarettes and something sour he couldn't identify. Emily climbed with practiced efficiency, the baby on her hip, Sophie trailing behind. The apartment was small, maybe 600 square feet, Ryan estimated. 1 bedroom visible through an open door, a tiny kitchen, and a living area with a futon and a TV that looked older than Sophie. But it was clean, obsessively clean, and decorated. Cheap Christmas decorations on the windows, hand-drawn pictures taped to the walls, an artificial tree in the corner with exactly 4 presents underneath it. Emily saw him looking. Sophie made most of the decorations. She loves Christmas. Ryan set the grocery bags on the small kitchen counter. Through the window, he could see the building across the street. Same brick, same desperation. How long have you lived here? He asked. 8 months? It's not much, but the landlord doesn't ask questions and the rent's consistent. What do you do, for work? Emily started unpacking the groceries, her movements automatic. I was a waitress at a diner downtown, lost that job when I had Emma. I've been applying everywhere, but nobody wants to hire someone who needs to bring an infant to work. What about the father? Her hand stilled on a container of formula. He left when I told him I was pregnant. Haven't heard from him since. Both kids? No, Sophie's father is somewhere. I don't know. He sends money sometimes, when he remembers we exist. She said it without emotion, like she was reading a weather report. It's fine. We're better off alone. Sophie had curled up on the futon, already half asleep despite the early hour. Emma was making soft cooing sounds in her mother's arms, finally content. Ryan should have left. He'd done his good deed. But instead he found himself pulling out his wallet and removing every bill he had, probably $800 in cash. Here, he said, holding it out, for rent, utilities, whatever you need. Emily's eyes went wide. I can't take that. Yes, you can. You already bought my groceries. That's more than anyone's ever. Her voice cracked. I don't take charity. It's not charity, it's a gift. There's a difference. Not from where I'm standing. Ryan set the money on the counter between them. I have more money than I'll ever spend in 3 lifetimes. You have 2 kids and declining credit cards. The math isn't complicated. You don't know me. I could be a drug addict, a con artist. I could take this money and never think about you again. Are you any of those things? No? Then take the money, Emily. She stared at the bills on the counter like they might explode. Why are you doing this? Ryan looked at Sophie, sleeping on the futon, at Emma dozing in her mother's arms, at the hand-drawn Christmas decorations covering up water stains on the walls. Because 2 years ago my wife died, he heard himself say. And I've spent every day since then going through the motions. Work, home, sleep, repeat. Tonight, for the first time in 743 days, I felt something other than numb. He met Emily's eyes. You didn't save my life in that supermarket, but you reminded me I still have one. Emily was crying now, silent tears running down her face. I don't know what to say. Say you'll take the money. Say you'll feed your kids and keep the heat on and not take the bus in the freezing rain. She picked up the cash with shaking hands. Okay, thank you. I'll pay you back. I swear, when I get back on my feet, don't. Ryan's voice was firm. This isn't a loan. I don't want it back. He left before she could argue more, before he could see the full weight of her gratitude. It felt too heavy, too real. In the car, Ryan sat in the driver's seat for a long moment before starting the engine. His hands were shaking. He couldn't remember the last time his hands had shaken. The drive back to Greenwich took 40 minutes. The house was dark except for the light in Mason's room. His son always slept with a nightlight, even at 6 years old. Sarah used to say he got that from Ryan. Inside, the nanny was asleep on the couch with the TV on mute. Ryan paid her double and sent her home. Then he climbed the stairs to Mason's room and pushed open the door. His son was sprawled across the bed, covers kicked off, breathing deep and even. Ryan stood there watching him sleep and thought about Sophie, about how she'd tried to carry those grocery bags, about how matter-of-factly she'd accepted that most people weren't nice when her mother's card got declined. Mason would never know that life, never worry about whether there'd be food or if the heat would stay on. He'd grow up in mansions with trust funds and private schools and every advantage money could buy. Was that better? Sarah would have said yes without hesitation, but standing there in the dark, Ryan wasn't sure anymore. He pulled Mason's covers back up and kissed his forehead. "I love you, buddy," he whispered. Mason stirred but didn't wake. Ryan went to his own bedroom and stood by the window overlooking the grounds. 10 acres, indoor pool, tennis court, all of it empty except for him and a 6-year-old who barely spoke anymore. He pulled out his phone and looked at Emily's address again. He'd gotten it from her driver's license when she'd shown it to him in the car, making sure he was who he said he was. He shouldn't have kept it. That was weird, borderline creepy. But he found himself saving it anyway. Cool. The next morning, Ryan woke up to Mason standing next to his bed, holding a stuffed dinosaur. "Dad, are you sick?" Ryan checked his phone. 6:47 a.m. He never slept past 6. "No, buddy. Why?" "You're still in bed. You're never still in bed." Ryan sat up and pulled his son into a hug. Mason went stiff. He always did that now. Used to melt into hugs when Sarah was alive. Now he tolerated them. "I just had a weird night," Ryan said. "What do you want for breakfast?" "Mrs. Chen makes breakfast." "I know. But what if I made it today?" Mason looked at him suspiciously. "You don't know how to make breakfast." "I know how to pour cereal," a ghost of a smile. "That's not really making it." "Fair point. Come on, let's see what's in the kitchen." The kitchen was gleaming and enormous and felt like a museum. Ryan opened the refrigerator and found it perfectly stocked with things he didn't know how to prepare. Eggs, vegetables, fancy cheeses. A labeled container that said Mason's lunch, Tuesday. Today was Thursday. "How about we go out?" Ryan said. "There's a diner downtown that makes good pancakes." Mason's eyes widened. "Really? But you have work." "Work can wait. What do you say?" "Okay." Mason was already running toward the stairs. "I need to get dressed." Ryan made coffee while he waited, strong and black, and thought about Emily in her tiny apartment trying to make formula while her baby screamed. The contrast was obscene. They took the Aston Martin downtown. Mason loved the car. It was one of the few things that still made him light up. They found parking near a place Sarah used to love, a greasy spoon called Dottie's that served breakfast all day. Inside, the smell of bacon and coffee was overwhelming. They sat in a booth by the window and Mason ordered chocolate chip pancakes without even looking at the menu. "You've been here before?" Ryan asked. "With Mom. She used to bring me on Saturdays when you were working." The words hit harder than they should have. "I didn't know that." "You were always working." Their waitress came over, young woman, probably early 20s, with tired eyes that reminded Ryan of Emily. "What can I get you, gentlemen?" Ryan ordered coffee and eggs. Mason got his pancakes and made the waitress promise extra chocolate chips. She smiled and said she'd see what she could do. "Dad?" Mason was playing with his napkin, folding it into smaller and smaller squares. "Do you miss Mom?" The question caught Ryan off guard. They didn't talk about Sarah. Not anymore. The therapist had said to let Mason bring it up on his own terms, but he never did. "Every day," Ryan said quietly. "Do you?" "I don't remember her very much anymore." Mason's voice was tiny. "I remember her smell, and how she sang the dinosaur song. But I can't remember her face unless I look at pictures." Ryan reached across the table and took his son's hand. "That's okay, buddy. That's normal." "Is it?" "Yeah, memory's weird like that. But you know what? You've got her smile and her laugh when you actually laugh. So part of her is still here." Mason nodded but didn't look convinced. Their food came. They ate in comfortable silence until Mason said, through a mouthful of pancakes, "You seem different today." "Different how?" "I don't know. Less sad, maybe." Ryan thought about the supermarket, about Emily's hands shaking as she tried to buy formula, about Sophie asking if her baby sister would be hungry all night. "Maybe I am," he said. "Just a little bit." Ryan dropped Mason at school and made it to the office by 9:30. His assistant Patricia nearly dropped her coffee when she saw him. "You're late," she said, like he'd just announced he was joining the circus. "Meeting ran long." It wasn't technically a lie. Breakfast was a meeting, just not a business one. "Your 9 o'clock has been waiting for 20 minutes, and the board wants to talk about the acquisition." And someone from the Journal called about, "Reschedule the 9 o'clock. Tell the board I'll call them this afternoon. And I don't talk to journalists. You know that." Patricia looked at him like he'd grown a second head. "Are you feeling all right?" "Why does everyone keep asking me that?" "Because you're acting weird. You're never late. You never reschedule meetings. And you're—" She paused. "Smiling? Kind of." Ryan touched his face. He was smiling. "Huh. Should I be concerned?" "Probably." "Hold my calls for an hour." He closed his office door and sat at his desk, looking out over the Boston skyline. From up here, the city looked clean and orderly. You couldn't see the struggling single mothers or the declining credit cards or the kids who'd learned not to expect niceness. Ryan opened his laptop and pulled up Emily's address again. Then, before he could talk himself out of it, he called his head of HR. "Jennifer, I need you to do something for me. Quietly." Text. 2 weeks later, Emily Carter received a job offer from Whitmore Technologies. Entry-level position in their customer service department. $45,000 a year plus benefits with on-site childcare included. She called the number on the letter 3 times to make sure it wasn't a scam. The woman who answered confirmed it was real, walked her through the details, and scheduled her start date for the following Monday. Emily hung up and looked at her daughters. Sophie was watching cartoons. Emma was asleep in her car seat, the same one they'd had in the supermarket. "We're going to be okay," Emily whispered to herself. "We're actually going to be okay." She didn't know that Ryan Whitmore had personally flagged her application, didn't know he'd told HR to create a position if they had to, didn't know he'd been checking every day to see if she'd applied. Ryan found out she'd accepted the job on a Friday afternoon. He was in a meeting about quarterly projections when Patricia slipped him a note. "Carter accepted. Starts Monday." He excused himself from the meeting early. That night, he picked Mason up from school himself instead of sending the driver. They got ice cream and went to the park even though it was freezing. Mason asked why they were celebrating. "Because sometimes good things happen to people who deserve them," Ryan said. "Like what?" "Like second chances." Mason didn't understand, but he was happy to have the ice cream anyway. Ryan pushed his son on the swings until the sun went down and the park lights came on. On the other side of the city, Emily was putting her girls to bed and laying out an outfit for her first day of work. Neither of them knew yet how completely their lives were about to tangle together. Neither of them knew that the supermarket was just the beginning. Emily's first day at Whitmore Technologies started with her throwing up in the employee parking garage. She'd gotten the girls to daycare early, taken 2 buses to get downtown, and made it to the gleaming glass tower with 15 minutes to spare. Then she'd looked up at the building, 37 stories of steel and ambition, and her stomach had just revolted. She barely made it to a trash can before losing the granola bar she'd eaten for breakfast. "First day?" A woman's voice, amused but not unkind. Emily wiped her mouth and turned to find an older black woman in a sharp blazer holding out a pack of mints. "That obvious?" "You've got that look. I'm Janet, accounting. Been here 12 years and I still get nervous walking through those doors." She gestured at the building. "The trick is remembering they're just people. Rich people, sure. Sometimes insufferable people. But still just people." Emily took a mint. "Thanks. I'm Emily, customer service." "Oh, you poor thing. You'll need more than mints." But Janet smiled when she said it. "Come on, I'll show you where to get the good coffee before orientation starts." The lobby was something out of a magazine. Marble floors, modern art that probably cost more than Emily's yearly salary. a reception desk manned by two impossibly beautiful people who looked like they'd stepped out of a fashion show. Emily felt underdressed in her Target clearance blazer and the only pair of heels she owned. Janet led her to a break room on the third floor that was nicer than Emily's entire apartment. "This is where the real employees hang out. The fancy cafe downstairs is for executives and clients. We've got real coffee here and nobody's trying to network." Emily poured herself a cup, hands still shaking slightly. "Can I ask you something?" "Shoot. Why would a company like this hire someone like me? I've been unemployed for 8 months. I've got 2 kids. My resume has a 6-month gap where I was literally just trying to keep my family alive." She said it all in a rush, the fear she'd been carrying since the job offer arrived. "It doesn't make sense." Janet studied her for a long moment. "You know what I've learned working here? This company does a lot of things that don't make sense on paper. Ryan Whitmore runs it based on gut feeling as much as spreadsheets, drives the board crazy." She sipped her coffee. "My advice? Don't question it. Just do the work and cash the paychecks." Emily wanted to believe her, but something about the timing felt too convenient. She'd applied to dozens of jobs in the past 8 months. Most never responded. The ones that did took one look at her employment gap and childcare needs, and suddenly the position was filled. Then she meets a billionaire in a supermarket who pays for her groceries, and 2 weeks later she's got a job offer from his company? Emily wasn't stupid. She knew how this looked. The orientation was standard corporate stuff: safety procedures, harassment policies, a benefits package that made Emily's eyes water because she'd finally have health insurance. The woman leading it, someone from HR named Jennifer, kept smiling at Emily in a way that felt personal, like she knew something Emily didn't. By lunch, Emily's paranoia had reached a fever pitch. She ate a sandwich from home in the break room while the other new hires went to the fancy cafe. She couldn't afford $12 salads, even with her new salary. "Emily Carter?" She looked up to find Jennifer from HR standing there with a visitor badge in her hand. "Yes?" "Mr. Whitmore would like to see you in his office. 37th floor. His assistant will meet you at the elevator." Emily's stomach dropped. "Why? Did I do something wrong?" "Nothing wrong. He just likes to personally welcome certain new employees." Jennifer's smile was professional, but her eyes were knowing. "The elevators are just past reception." Emily threw away her half-eaten sandwich and tried not to panic. This was it. He was going to proposition her, or fire her for some fabricated reason, or... The elevator ride to the 37th floor felt like it took hours. When the doors opened, a woman who looked like she ran the Pentagon greeted her. "Emily, I'm Patricia, Mr. Whitmore's assistant. He's just finishing a call. You can wait here." The waiting area outside Ryan's office had furniture that probably cost more than Emily's car used to before it died. She perched on the edge of a chair and tried to calm her breathing. Through the glass walls, she could see him, Ryan Whitmore, on the phone, pacing while he talked. He was in a suit that probably cost thousands, his hair slightly messed up like he'd been running his hands through it. He looked different than he had in the supermarket. More intense, more intimidating, more like the billionaire he actually was. The call ended. Ryan looked up, saw her, and his whole face changed. The intensity melted into something softer. He said something to Patricia, who nodded, and then he was opening his door. "Emily, thanks for coming up." She stood, smoothed her clearance blazer, and walked into his office on legs that felt like water. "Mr. Whitmore." "Ryan, please." He gestured to a seating area by the windows, not his desk, which somehow made it worse, more intimate. "How was your first morning?" Emily sat on the edge of a leather chair and cut straight to it. "Did you give me this job?" Ryan's expression didn't change. "You applied. HR reviewed your application. You were qualified." "That's not what I asked." A pause. Then Ryan sighed and sat across from her, elbows on his knees. "I told HR to look at your application, that's all. They made the decision." "But you flagged it. You made sure they saw it." "Yes." "Why?" "Because you needed a job and I needed good people." Emily laughed, sharp and bitter. "I've needed a job for 8 months, Mr. Whitmore. Nobody cared until you decided to play savior." Ryan's jaw tightened. "That's not what this is." "Then what is it?" "Because from where I'm sitting, this looks like a rich guy who thinks he can fix a poor woman's life because it makes him feel good about himself." The words came out harsher than she intended, but she didn't take them back. "I don't need saving. I needed a job." There's a difference. You're right. Ryan's voice was quiet. I should have told you. That was wrong. I saw an opportunity to help, and I took it. I didn't think about how it would make you feel. Like a charity case. You're not a charity case, Emily. You're a woman who got screwed by a system that punishes single mothers for existing. I just opened a door. You're the one who walked through it. Emily wanted to stay angry. Anger was easier than the complicated mess of gratitude and resentment and confusion swirling in her chest. What do you want from me? Nothing. I want you to do the job you were hired for. I want you to take care of your daughters. That's it. That's it. That's it. She studied his face, looking for the catch. Men didn't help women for nothing. There was always a price, always an expectation. But Ryan just looked tired and sincere, and maybe a little bit lost. Okay, Emily said finally, but I'm going to do this job well, not because you helped me, but because I need to, for my girls. I wouldn't expect anything less. Emily stood to leave, then paused. The supermarket. That wasn't planned, was it? You weren't looking for someone to rescue. My driver called in sick. I needed groceries. That's the whole story. And you just happened to decide to pay for a stranger's food. Ryan stood too, hands in his pockets. My wife died 2 years ago. I spent every day since then on autopilot. Then I saw you in that store and something in me just woke up. I don't know how else to explain it. Emily nodded slowly. I'm sorry. About your wife. I'm sorry about your situation, the father, all of it. We're quite a pair of disasters, aren't we? Ryan smiled for the first time since she'd walked in. Yeah, we really are. Emily left his office feeling like she'd just survived something, though she wasn't sure what. Patricia handed her a folder on the way out. Your employee packet, building access, parking information, direct deposit forms. Mr. Whitmore also wanted you to have this. She pulled out a company credit card. For work expenses. Sometimes customer service needs to order supplies or grab lunch with clients. It's standard for all employees. Emily took the card like it might bite her. This is standard? Absolutely. It wasn't. Emily had worked enough minimum wage jobs to know when someone was bending the rules. But she pocketed the card anyway because arguing would just draw more attention. The afternoon training session was about the phone system and how to escalate angry customers. Emily took notes and tried to focus, but her mind kept drifting back to Ryan's office, to the way he'd looked at her, like she was a person, not a problem. When 5 o'clock hit, Emily practically ran to the daycare center. She needed to see her girls. Needed to remind herself why she was doing this. Sophie came running the moment she saw her mother, pigtails flying. Mommy, we had pizza for lunch and I made a friend named Marcus. Emma was asleep in an attendant's arms, her face peaceful and milk-drunk. Emily gathered both her daughters and just breathed them in. How was your first day at work? The attendant asked. Emily thought about the throwing up and the paranoia and the confrontation with a billionaire in his corner office. Complicated. First days usually are. The bus ride home took an hour. Sophie chattered the whole time about her new friend and the toy kitchen in the daycare. Emma woke up and started fussing. By the time they got to their apartment, Emily was exhausted. But there was food in the fridge, the heat was on. Emma had enough formula to last the week. They were going to be okay. Emily made dinner, nothing fancy, just pasta and jarred sauce, and let Sophie help stir. They ate on the futon while watching cartoons. Emma sat in her bouncy seat, making grabby hands at the TV. After the girls were asleep, Emily pulled out the employee packet and really read it. Health insurance that covered vision and dental. Retirement matching. Paid time off. It read like fiction. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Hello? Emily. It's Janet from accounting. I got your number from the directory. Hope that's not weird. I wanted to see how your first day went. Emily felt something loosen in her chest. It was a lot, but I survived. That's the spirit. Listen, a few of us get drinks on Friday nights. Nothing fancy, just a dive bar near the office. You should come. I don't know. I've got the girls and I can't really afford. First round's on me. And bring the girls if you need to. My sister brings her kids sometimes and they just color in the corner. It's that kind of place. Emily smiled. Okay, yeah, that sounds nice. Great, I'll text you the address. After they hung up, Emily sat in her quiet apartment and realized she'd made a friend. An actual friend who wasn't judging her situation or pitying her circumstances. Just a friend. When was the last time she'd had one of those? The rest of the week passed in a blur of training and phone calls and learning the computer system. Emily's coworkers were mostly kind, though she caught a few of them whispering when they thought she wasn't listening. The new girl who came out of nowhere. Wonder what her story is. She kept her head down and did the work, answered calls from confused customers, helped process orders, stayed 30 minutes late every day just to prove she was worth the salary. On Thursday, she saw Ryan in the lobby. He was with a group of men in expensive suits, probably investors or board members. He glanced her way, did a double take, and nodded. Just a simple acknowledgement. Emily nodded back and kept walking. Friday evening, she left work at exactly 5 and headed to the bar Janet had mentioned. It was called Murphy's, and it looked like every other Irish pub in Boston. Dark wood, Guinness signs, sports on TV. Janet waved from a booth in the back. "You made it!" Emily slid in next to her, Sophie and Emma in tow. "I said I would." "Where are the girls?" "Right here. Sophie, say hi to Miss Janet." Sophie, who'd been clutching her mother's hand like a lifeline, gave a tiny wave. Emma just stared at everyone with wide eyes. "They're beautiful," Janet said. Then to the bartender, "2 beers and a Sprite with a cherry." Sophie's eyes lit up. "A cherry? Can't come to a bar without getting a Shirley Temple. It's tradition." The other women at the table introduced themselves. Carol from marketing, Diane from legal, a younger woman named Keisha who worked in Ryan's department but never saw him because he was always locked in meetings. They talked about office gossip and terrible customers, and the rumor that the company was about to acquire some startup in California. Emily mostly listened, nursing her beer and making sure Sophie didn't spill her Sprite. It felt surreal sitting in a bar with coworkers like a normal person with a normal life. "So Emily," Carol said, leaning in conspiratorially, "how'd you really get hired?" Emily's stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "Just that it's unusual. Most people go through 3 rounds of interviews. You had 1 phone call with Jennifer and suddenly you're in. Maybe I'm just that good at phone interviews. Or maybe someone upstairs likes you." Carol's smile was sharp. "Ryan Whitmore doesn't usually get involved in hiring, but word is he specifically requested your file." Emily took a long drink of her beer. "I met him before I applied. He knew I needed a job, that's all." "How'd you meet a billionaire?" "Supermarket, random encounter." "And he just decided to hire you out of the goodness of his heart?" "Carol, leave her alone," Janet cut in. "Emily's qualified. She's doing good work. That's all that matters." But Carol wasn't done. "I'm just saying, it's suspicious. A single mother with 2 kids suddenly gets hired, and within a week, she's got benefits and access other people had to work years for. It makes people wonder." "Wonder what exactly?" Emily's voice came out harder than she intended. "If you're sleeping with him." The table went silent. Sophie looked up from her coloring book, sensing the tension. Emma started to fuss. Emily stood up, gathering her things. "Thanks for the drink, Janet. I should get the girls home." "Emily, wait." Janet shot Carol a furious look. "Don't let her ruin this. She's always been a—" "It's fine, really." Emily managed a smile. "I'll see you Monday." The walk to the bus stop was cold and humiliating. Sophie kept asking why they left so fast, and Emily couldn't find the words to explain that sometimes people were just cruel for no reason. On the bus, she texted Janet, "Thanks for inviting me. Sorry I left early." Janet responded immediately, "Don't apologize. Carol's a jealous witch who's been gunning for a promotion for 3 years. Ignore her." But Emily couldn't ignore it, because Carol had said out loud what Emily had been thinking since the job offer arrived. What was Ryan Whitmore's real angle? What did he want? Men like him didn't help women like her without expecting something in return. The weekend passed slowly. Emily took the girls to the park, did laundry at the laundromat, tried not to think about Monday. Sunday night, while putting Sophie to bed, her daughter asked, "Are you sad, Mommy?" "No, baby, just tired." "You look sad, like when Emma cries and you can't make her stop." Emily kissed her daughter's forehead. "Some problems are harder to fix than crying babies, but I'm working on it." Monday morning, Emily arrived at work 30 minutes early. She was pulling files for the day when Patricia appeared at her desk. "Emily, Mr. Whitmore would like to see you." Here it comes, Emily thought, the real reason he hired me. She followed Patricia to the elevator, her heart pounding. This time when she entered Ryan's office, he was standing at the window looking out over the city. "Close the door," he said without turning around. Emily did, her mouth dry. "I heard what happened Friday night, at the bar." Of course he did. Rich people always knew everything. It's fine. It's not fine. What Carol said was out of line. He finally turned to face her. "I'm going to have HR talk to her." "Please don't. That'll just make it worse. People already think I'm getting special treatment." "Are you?" "I don't know." "Am I?" Ryan crossed his arms. "You want the truth?" "I think I've earned it." "Yes. You're getting special treatment, not because I want to sleep with you or because I'm running some savior complex, but because when I met you in that supermarket, you reminded me that there are people in this world who fight every single day just to survive. And instead of becoming bitter or angry, you were gentle with your kids. You were kind to a stranger who bought your groceries. You didn't demand more or act entitled." He paused. "I have a 6-year-old son who barely talks anymore because he watched his mother die. I'm worth $3 billion and I can't figure out how to make him smile. Then I met you and your daughters, and I thought, maybe if I can help someone who actually deserves it, maybe that counts for something." Emily's eyes were burning. "That's a lot of pressure to put on a stranger." "I know, and I'm sorry. You didn't ask for any of this." "No, I didn't." She wiped her eyes angrily. "But I'm here now. So what do we do about it?" "You do your job, I stay out of your way. And if anyone gives you trouble, you tell me." "I'm not going to run to the billionaire every time someone's mean to me, Ryan. That's not how this works." "Then how does it work?" "I don't know." Emily threw her hands up. "I've never been in this situation before. I've never had someone actually help me without wanting something. I don't know how to process it." They stood there in his enormous office, two damaged people trying to figure out what they owed each other. Finally, Ryan said, "My son, Mason. He's struggling. His therapist says he needs to be around other kids more, but he won't engage at school. He won't make friends. He just exists." "What does that have to do with me?" "Your daughters. Sophie especially. She seems happy, adjusted." "How do you do that?" Emily almost laughed. "You think my kids are adjusted? Sophie has nightmares about us getting evicted. Emma cries every time I leave her at daycare because she thinks I won't come back. We're all a mess, Ryan. We're just better at hiding it. But they laugh, they play. Mason doesn't do any of that anymore. Because he lost his mother. That's not something you fix by throwing money at it." "I know that," Ryan's voice cracked. "I know I can't fix it, but I have to do something. I can't just watch him disappear into himself." Emily softened. "What are you asking?" Could you bring your daughters to the house sometime? Let the kids play together? Maybe seeing other children outside of school would help." "You want a play date?" "I want my son to remember how to be a kid." Emily should have said no, should have kept her professional distance and her boundaries intact. But she looked at Ryan's face and saw the same desperation she'd felt every time Sophie asked about her father or Emma reached for someone who wasn't there. "Okay," she heard herself say. "This weekend, Saturday afternoon. But just for an hour. And if the kids don't click, we're not forcing it." "Thank you." The relief in his voice was palpable. "I'll send a car. I'll take the bus. Give me your address." Ryan wrote it on a business card, his handwriting surprisingly messy. Emily pocketed it and headed for the door. "Emily?" She turned. "For what it's worth, you're doing a good job here. Not because I helped you, just because you're good at it." Emily nodded once and left before the tears could fall. The rest of the week crawled by. Emily fielded calls and avoided Carol and tried not to think about Saturday. She told Sophie they were going to visit a friend's house to play, which technically wasn't a lie. Saturday morning, she dressed the girls in their nicest clothes, which wasn't saying much, and took 2 buses to Greenwich. The address Ryan had given her led to a gate with an intercom. Emily pressed the button, feeling ridiculous. "Yes?" A woman's voice. "I'm Emily Carter. Mr. Whitmore is expecting me." The gate swung open. The driveway alone was longer than Emily's entire street. When the house came into view, she actually stopped walking. It wasn't a house. It was a compound. Modern architecture, all glass and steel, overlooking grounds that looked like they belonged to a country club. Sophie's mouth fell open. "Mommy, Is this a castle? Something like that, baby. Ryan met them at the front door, wearing jeans and a sweater that probably cost more than Emily's rent. He looked nervous. You came. I said I would. Right, come in. Mason's in the playroom. The inside of the house was exactly what Emily expected. Expensive, minimalist, and completely devoid of warmth. It looked like a showroom, not a home. Ryan led them through a hallway to a room that was clearly meant for a child but felt staged. Too many toys still in their boxes. Too much organization. Too clean. Mason was sitting on the floor, arranging toy cars in a line. He looked up when they entered, his expression cautious. Mason, this is Emily and her daughters, Sophie and Emma. They're here to play for a bit. The boy nodded, but didn't speak. Sophie, bless her fearless heart, walked right up to him. Hi, I'm Sophie. Do you like dinosaurs? My mommy says I can't bring all my dinosaurs everywhere, but I brought Mr. Chompers. She pulled a plastic T-Rex from her pocket. You want to play? Mason looked at the dinosaur, then at Sophie, then miraculously at his father. Ryan nodded encouragingly. Okay, Mason said quietly. I have dinosaurs too. Within 10 minutes, Sophie and Mason were running around the playroom making their dinosaurs fight, while Emma chewed on a teething ring in her carrier. Emily and Ryan stood awkwardly by the door, watching. He's smiling, Ryan whispered. When's the last time I saw him smile? Sophie has that effect on people. She doesn't know how to be anything but herself. I wish Mason could be that free. He will be. It just takes time. They stood there watching their children play, two broken parents trying to figure out how to glue their families back together. And for the first time in 2 years, both of them felt something close to hope. The playdates became a regular thing. Every Saturday afternoon, Emily would take 2 buses to Greenwich with her daughters, and Mason would actually run to the door when they arrived. Not walk, run. Ryan noticed everything. The way his son's whole face changed when Sophie bounded into the playroom. How Mason started talking more, asking questions, even laughing at Sophie's terrible knock-knock jokes. The kid was coming back to life, piece by piece. But Emily noticed things too, like how Ryan's house felt more like a museum than a home. How Mason's toys were organized by type and size, not scattered in the chaos of actual play. How there was a housekeeper who meal prepped everything and a nanny who still came 3 days a week, even though Mason was in first grade. One Saturday in late February, after the kids had been playing for an hour, Ryan asked Emily if she wanted coffee. She followed him to the kitchen, an enormous space with appliances that looked like they belonged in a spaceship. I don't actually know how to use half of this stuff, Ryan admitted, staring at an espresso machine that probably cost $5,000. The housekeeper usually makes it. It's your house? And you don't know how to make coffee? I know how to press buttons on the machine at work. Does that count? Emily laughed and moved him aside. Go sit down. I'll figure it out. She poked around until she found regular coffee grounds and a French press hidden behind the fancy machine. While the water boiled, she looked around the kitchen. Spotless counters. No dishes in the sink. No magnets on the fridge. No evidence that actual humans lived here. When's the last time you cooked? She asked. Ryan thought about it. Defined cooked. Made food with heat and ingredients. Then never. Sarah used to cook. After she died, the housekeeper took over. What does Mason eat? Whatever Mrs. Chen makes, she's good at it. He never complains. Emily pressed the coffee and poured 2 cups. That's not what I asked. Ryan took the mug she offered, wrapping his hands around it. He eats healthy food, balanced meals, vegetables. Does he like any of it? I don't know. He eats it. Ryan. Emily sat across from him at the kitchen island. When's the last time you asked him what he wanted for dinner? I asked Mrs. Chen to make things kids like, chicken fingers, mac and cheese. Gourmet mac and cheese that probably has truffle oil and costs $30 a serving? Ryan's silence was answer enough. Emily sighed. You're trying so hard to give him everything that you're forgetting to just be his dad. I am his dad. Then act like it. Make him a grilled cheese. Burn it a little because you forgot to flip it. Let him help you crack eggs even though he'll get shell everywhere. Stop outsourcing every part of his childhood. Ryan set his coffee down hard enough that it sloshed. You don't get to judge how I raise my son. I'm not judging. I'm telling you what I see. You see a kid who has everything he needs, a roof over his head, food, education, stability. I see a kid who has everything except the one thing he actually wants, his dad's attention. I'm here every night. I read to him. I help with homework. Do you? Or does the nanny do that while you answer emails? Ryan stood up, his jaw tight. You've been coming here for what, 6 weeks? And suddenly you're an expert on my parenting? Emily stood too. I'm not an expert on anything. I'm just a mother who's had to figure out how to make my kids feel loved when I had nothing else to give them. And from where I'm standing, you've got all the resources in the world and you're still getting it wrong. Then maybe you should stop coming here. The words hung in the air between them, sharp and ugly. From the playroom, they could hear Sophie shrieking with laughter and Mason's quieter giggles joining in. The sound of children being children. Emily grabbed her purse. You're right. This was a mistake. She walked toward the playroom, Ryan following behind her. Sophie and Mason had built a fort out of couch cushions and were defending it from an army of stuffed animals. Sophie, baby, we need to go. But Mommy, we just started the battle. Now, Sophie. Something in Emily's voice made Sophie stop arguing. She climbed out of the fort, her face falling. Can we come back next week? I don't think so, honey. Mason's face crumpled. Why not? Emily looked at Ryan, who was standing in the doorway with his arms crossed, still angry. Ask your dad. She gathered Emma's things and headed for the door. Sophie followed, dragging her feet, looking back at Mason like she was being forced to abandon a wounded soldier. Wait. Ryan's voice stopped them in the foyer. Emily, wait. She turned, Emma on her hip, Sophie clutching her hand. Ryan ran a hand through his hair, the fight draining out of him. You're right, about all of it. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm terrified every single day that I'm screwing him up worse than he already is. Then stop hiding behind money and staff and do the actual work of being present. I don't know how. Nobody does. You just do it anyway. Mason appeared behind his father, his eyes red. Are Sophie and Emma leaving because of me? Nobody, Ryan said quickly, crouching down. Not because of you. Then why? Emily and Ryan looked at each other. She could walk out right now, keep her boundaries, stay in her lane, stop getting tangled up in this damaged billionaire's complicated life. But Mason was looking at Sophie like she was the only friend he'd ever had, and Sophie was looking at Mason the same way. How about this? Emily said slowly. Next Saturday, Mason comes to our place. We'll make pizza, the cheap kind from a box, and Ryan can come too if he promises to actually help instead of just watching. We're going to your house? Mason's eyes went wide. Can I bring Mr. Stomps? He held up a toy dinosaur. You can bring whoever you want. Ryan stood up. Emily, you don't have to. I know I don't have to. I'm choosing to. There's a difference. She gave him her address again, even though he probably still had it from driving her home that first night. 2:00. Don't be late. The following Saturday, Ryan's Aston Martin looked completely ridiculous parked in front of Emily's building. She watched from her window as he helped Mason out, both of them staring up at the graffiti-covered brick like they'd landed on another planet. Sophie was bouncing off the walls with excitement. They're here! Mommy! They're here! Emily buzzed them up. While she waited for them to climb the 3 flights, she looked around her apartment and tried not to feel ashamed. It was clean. It was the best she could do. It would have to be enough. Ryan knocked. Sophie threw the door open before Emily could get there. Mason, come see my room. Well, it's Mommy's room too, but I have a corner with all my stuff. The 2 kids disappeared while Ryan stood in the doorway holding a grocery bag, looking completely out of place in his designer jeans and cashmere sweater. You came, Emily said. You invited us. I wasn't sure you'd actually show up. Ryan stepped inside and looked around. Emily watched him take it in. The futon that served as couch and spare bed, the tiny kitchen with its mismatched dishes, the hand-drawn pictures covering the water-stained walls. The apartment was maybe a quarter the size of his kitchen. It's small, Emily said defensively, but it's ours. It feels like a home. Ryan set the grocery bag on the counter. I brought supplies. I wasn't sure what you needed. Emily looked in the bag and almost laughed. Organic flour, imported tomato sauce, fresh mozzarella that probably cost $20. Ryan, I said we're making pizza from a box. I thought we could make it from scratch. Do you know how to make pizza from scratch? No, but there's probably a recipe online. Emily pulled out her phone and found the simplest recipe she could. Okay, but we're doing this my way, which means it's going to be messy and chaotic, and the kids are going to help. I can handle messy. He couldn't. Within 20 minutes, the kitchen was a disaster. Flour everywhere. Mason had dough in his hair. Sophie had somehow gotten tomato sauce on the ceiling. Emma was in her bouncy seat, shrieking with delight at the chaos. Ryan looked horrified. This is what cooking with kids looks like, Emily said, laughing at his expression. Welcome to reality. Mason was kneading dough with an intensity that suggested he was working out some serious feelings. Sophie was spreading sauce with her hands because she'd declared the spoon boring. Dad, look! Mason held up his dough ball proudly. I made it all by myself. Ryan's face did something complicated. That's great, buddy. Really great. Can I put the cheese on now? Go for it. Emily showed both kids how to sprinkle cheese and add toppings. Sophie wanted pepperoni shaped like a smiley face. Mason wanted just cheese, but arranged in a very specific pattern. They were taking it so seriously, their little faces scrunched in concentration. While the pizzas baked, Emily made the kids wash their hands and then sent them to play. Ryan stood in her tiny kitchen, looking at the mess they'd made. I should clean this up, he said. We'll do it together, after we eat. They sat on the futon while the kids played in the corner. Emma had fallen asleep in her bouncy seat, full and content. The apartment smelled like pizza and childhood. Thank you, Ryan said quietly. For this. For giving us another chance. I didn't do it for you. I did it for Mason and Sophie. I know, but still. The timer went off. Emily pulled the pizzas from the oven. They were a little burnt on the edges, the cheese slightly uneven. They looked perfect. The four of them ate, sitting on the floor around the coffee table because Emily didn't have a dining table. Mason declared it the best pizza he'd ever had, which was probably a lie, but Emily didn't correct him. Sophie told a long, rambling story about her friend at daycare who could burp the alphabet. Ryan was quiet, but he was watching. Really watching. His son. The way Mason laughed. The way he interacted with Sophie. The way he seemed lighter somehow. After dinner, while the kids played, Ryan helped Emily clean the kitchen. They worked in comfortable silence until Ryan said, I fired Mrs. Chen. Emily turned, surprised. The housekeeper. Why? Not fired. Reduced her hours. She'll come twice a week to do the heavy cleaning, but the cooking, the day-to-day stuff. I'm going to try to do it myself. Do you know how to cook anything? I'm going to learn. Mason should see me trying, even if I fail. Emily smiled. That's good. He'll remember that more than any perfect meal a housekeeper made. I called Mason's therapist too, told her about the play dates. She thinks it's good for him. It is good for him. Sophie too. She's been happier. Ryan dried a plate, examining it like he'd never seen a normal dish before. Can I ask you something personal? That depends on what it is. Sophie's father, you said he sends money sometimes. Does Mason's dad ever... Does he try to be part of her life? Emily's hand stilled in the soapy water. No. He made it clear he didn't want to be a father. And honestly, I'm relieved. A part-time dad who shows up when it's convenient is worse than no dad at all. What about Emma's father? Same guy, different kid. She said it flatly, daring him to judge. Ryan didn't. That must be hard, doing it alone. Some days are harder than others, but they're my girls. I'd do anything for them. I can tell. They finished the dishes. Ryan's phone kept buzzing in his pocket, but he ignored it. Through the window, Emily could see the sun starting to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. We should go, Ryan said reluctantly. School tomorrow. Mason protested. Of course. Sophie did too, but Emily bribed her daughter with the promise of a cartoon before bed, and Ryan promised Mason they could come back next week. At the door, Mason surprised everyone by hugging Emily, just wrapped his arms around her waist and squeezed. Thank you for the pizza, he said, his voice muffled against her stomach. Emily's throat went tight. You're welcome, sweetheart. You can come make it again any time. After they left, Emily stood in her tiny apartment looking at the flowers still dusted on the counter, the crayon drawings the kids had made, the dent in the futon cushion where Ryan had sat. Something was shifting. She could feel it. The careful boundaries she'd constructed were starting to blur. That scared her more than she wanted to admit. The next week at work, Ryan stopped by her desk. Not in his office with the door closed. Right there in the open customer service floor where everyone could see. Mason hasn't stopped talking about the pizza, he said, perching on the edge of her desk, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Carol, 2 desks over, was practically burning holes in them with her stare. Sophie's been asking when he can come back, Emily replied, keeping her voice professional. How about this weekend, but at my place? I want to try cooking something with Mason. You could supervise? You want me to teach you how to cook? I want to not poison my kid. There's a difference. Emily laughed despite herself. Okay, but same deal. No fancy ingredients. We're making regular food. Define regular. If it has more than 7 ingredients, it's too complicated. Deal. He walked away and Carol immediately rolled her chair over. What was that about? Work stuff, Emily lied. Looked pretty friendly for work stuff. He's being nice. That's what good bosses do. Carol's smile was sharp. Right. Of course, that's all it is. But Emily could feel the gossip spreading like wildfire. By lunch, 3 different people had asked her if she was close with Mr. Whitmore. By the end of the day, someone from another department stopped her in the elevator to say she was lucky to have such a hands-on boss. The implications were clear. Emily called Ryan from her cell on the bus ride home. We need to stop. Stop what? The playdates. You coming to my desk at work? All of it. People are talking. Let them talk. Easy for you to say. You're the boss. I'm the single mother who got hired under suspicious circumstances. There's already rumors that I'm sleeping with you. Ryan was quiet for a long moment. I'm sorry. I didn't think about how it would look. Of course you didn't. You don't have to, but I do. So what do you want to do? Emily wanted to keep her job. She wanted Sophie and Mason to keep being friends. She wanted to stop feeling like she was doing something wrong when she wasn't. Keep the playdates at your house or mine, not at work. No more visiting my desk. No more special treatment that people can point to. Okay, that's fair. And Ryan, if this gets too complicated, if it starts affecting my job, I'm going to have to choose my daughters every time. I wouldn't expect anything less. Saturday came. Emily took the bus to Greenwich again, but this time she brought ingredients from the regular grocery store. Chicken, potatoes, carrots. They were going to roast a whole chicken because that was something Ryan needed to know how to do. Mason met them at the door, already wearing an apron that was way too big for him. Sophie, we're cooking today. Dad got me an apron. The kids ran off while Emily followed Ryan to the kitchen. He'd actually cleared off the counter. No stacks of mail, no random objects. Like he was taking this seriously. Okay, Emily said, pulling out the chicken. First rule of cooking, it's going to look scary, but it's actually simple. That chicken still has parts. It's a whole chicken, Ryan. This is what they look like. I've only ever bought the pre-cut stuff. Emily walked him through it. Rinsing the chicken, seasoning it, cutting vegetables. Ryan followed instructions like he was assembling a nuclear reactor, precise and slightly terrified. Mason wandered in. Can I help? You can put butter on the potatoes, Emily said, handing him a stick of butter and a butter knife. Mason went at it with enthusiasm, getting butter everywhere except the potatoes. Ryan started to correct him, but Emily caught his eye and shook her head. Perfect job, Mason, she said. Those potatoes are going to be delicious. Sophie appeared with Emma. What can I do? Wash the carrots in the sink. Make sure they're really clean. Both kids worked while Emily showed Ryan how to truss the chicken and put everything in the roasting pan. His hands were shaking slightly as he slid it into the oven. How long? He asked. About 90 minutes. We'll check it. They set a timer. The kids went back to playing. Ryan and Emily sat at the kitchen island with coffee, the smell of roasting chicken slowly filling the house. I've lived here for 4 years, Ryan said. This is the first time it smelled like someone actually cooks in this kitchen. That's depressing. Tell me about it. Emily looked around the spotless space. Your wife. Did she cook? All the time. She loved it. Said it was how she showed love. Ryan's voice went soft. She used to make this pot roast that Mason loved. I haven't made it since she died because I don't know how. Did she write down the recipe? Probably. She had a whole notebook of them somewhere. You should find it. Make it with Mason, even if you mess it up. What if it doesn't taste like hers? Then it'll taste like yours, and that'll be its own thing. Ryan stared into his coffee. Sometimes I feel like I'm erasing her. Every change I make, every new thing I do, it's like I'm moving further away from who we were. You're not erasing her. You're learning how to live without her. There's a difference. How do you do it? Move forward when everything fell apart. Emily thought about the nights after Sophie's father left. The mornings she couldn't get out of bed. The times she'd sat in her car crying because she couldn't face going inside to her daughter's questions. You don't have a choice. You've got kids depending on you, so you get up and you keep going, and some days you're faking it so hard you can't breathe. But eventually, the faking starts to feel a little more real. Does it get easier? No, you just get stronger. They sat in silence until the timer went off. Ryan pulled the chicken from the oven with Emily's guidance. It was golden and crispy and smelled incredible. I made that, Ryan said, sounding stunned. I actually made that. You did. Mason came running. It smells so good. Did we really make that? We really did, buddy. They ate at the kitchen table, Ryan's formal dining room that Emily suspected never got used. The chicken was a little dry, but the vegetables were perfect, and Mason ate 3 helpings. This is better than Mrs. Chen's chicken, Mason declared. Don't tell her that, Ryan said, but he was smiling. Sophie told more stories. Emma threw carrots on the floor. It was messy and loud and imperfect. It felt like a family. After dinner, while the kids played, Emily helped Ryan clean up. He was loading the dishwasher wrong, plates where the cups should go, and she started to correct him but stopped herself. He'd figure it out. Emily? Ryan's voice was quiet. Can I ask you something? Another personal question? More of a hypothetical. Okay. If someone wanted to help you, really help you, not just financially, but, I don't know, be part of your life, would you let them? Emily's hand stilled on the dish she was drying. That depends on who it is and what they want in return. What if they didn't want anything in return? Everyone wants something, Ryan. Not this person. Emily turned to look at him. He was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read, hopeful, scared, something else underneath. What are you asking? She said softly. I don't know. Mason's happy when you're here. The house feels less empty. I feel less... He trailed off. Less what? Less alone. The words hung between them. Emily could feel something shifting, the ground under her feet becoming unstable. Ryan, Emily! Sophie's voice interrupted. Mason said he has a pool. Can we see it? The moment broke. Emily stepped back, putting distance between them. We should probably get going, actually. It's getting late. Right, of course. She gathered her girls and their things. At the door, Ryan caught her arm gently. I shouldn't have said that. About feeling less alone. It's okay. I get it. You're lonely. I'm convenient. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? Ryan looked at her, really looked at her, and Emily felt something in her chest tighten. I meant that you and your daughters have reminded me what it feels like to actually live instead of just existing, and I'm grateful for that. Gratitude isn't the same as friendship, Ryan, and it's definitely not the same as whatever you think this is becoming. What is it becoming? Complicated. That's what it's becoming. She left before he could respond, her heart pounding. On the bus ride home, Sophie fell asleep against her shoulder and Emma dozed in her carrier. Emily stared out the window and tried to figure out what the hell she was doing. She was getting too close, letting Ryan and Mason into their lives in a way that felt dangerous. What happened when Ryan got bored of playing house? When the novelty wore off and he remembered he was a billionaire with a whole world of options? She'd be the one left picking up the pieces, explaining to Sophie why they couldn't see Mason anymore, dealing with the gossip at work, going back to being alone. That night, after putting the girls to bed, Emily sat on her futon and made a decision. She'd pull back, keep things professional. The kids could still play, but she needed distance from Ryan. It was the smart choice, the safe choice. So why did it feel like she was running away from something that might actually be good? Emily's plan to pull back lasted exactly 5 days. On Thursday afternoon, Mason showed up at the company daycare looking for Sophie. The attendant called Emily down from customer service, confused because the boy kept saying he needed to see his friend and wouldn't leave until he did. Emily found him sitting on a tiny chair in the corner, his backpack clutched to his chest, eyes red from crying. Mason, what are you doing here? Where's your dad? He's in a meeting. I told the driver to bring me here instead of home. Emily's heart sank. Does your dad know where you are? Mason shook his head. Does anyone know where you are? Another headshake. Oh, sweetheart. Emily pulled out her phone and called Ryan. It went straight to voicemail. She tried his office line. Patricia answered on the first ring. Whitmore Technologies, Mr. Whitmore's office. Patricia, it's Emily Carter. Is Ryan in a meeting? He's in with the board. Can I take a message? I need you to pull him out, now. His son is here and Mason's there? At the office? Patricia's voice went sharp with panic. He's supposed to be on his way home with the driver. Hold on. Emily heard muffled voices, then Ryan's voice came on the line. Emily, what's going on? Your son is at the company daycare. He told his driver to bring him here instead of home. What? Why would he? I'm coming down. Don't let him leave. Ryan appeared 3 minutes later, still in his suit, his tie loosened like he'd been yanking at it. The entire board was probably waiting upstairs, wondering where their CEO had gone. Mason looked up when his father entered the daycare, then looked away, his little jaw set stubbornly. Buddy, what happened? Why are you here? I wanted to see Sophie. You could have asked. I would have arranged something. You're always in meetings. You're always busy. The words hit Ryan like a slap. Emily could see it on his face. Mason, I'm never too busy for you. Yes, you are. Mason's voice cracked. You say you'll do stuff, and then you don't. You said we'd make dinner again, but then Mrs. Chen came back and she's making all the food again. You said we'd go to the park, but then you had a work call. You're just like before Emily and Sophie. You're disappearing again. Ryan crouched down to his son's level, his hands shaking slightly. I'm sorry, you're right. I got busy and I let things slip back to how they were. I don't want things how they were. I was lonely how they were. Emily's throat went tight. The daycare attendant was pretending to organize toys, but obviously listening. This was going to be all over the office by tomorrow. Let me take him, Emily said quietly. Just for tonight. You finish your meeting. I'll bring him home after dinner. You don't have to do that. I know I don't have to, but he came looking for Sophie and I'm not going to send him away. Ryan looked at his son, then back at Emily. Okay, thank you. I'll be done by 7. I can pick him up then. Or you could come to dinner. We're just having spaghetti, but there's enough. I don't want to impose. Dad? Mason's voice was small. Please, come to dinner. Ryan's face did something complicated. Okay, buddy. I'll be there. Emily took both kids on the bus. Mason had never been on public transit before and spent the whole ride staring out the window like it was a theme park ride. Sophie held his hand and pointed out her favorite buildings. At the apartment, Emily set the kids up with cartoons while she started dinner. Nothing fancy, jarred sauce, boxed pasta, a bag of pre-made salad, the kind of meal that cost $8 total. Mason watched her cook like she was performing surgery. That's it? You just boil water? That's it. Mrs. Chen uses like 12 pots. Mrs. Chen is showing off, Sophie giggled. Emma was in her high chair, gumming a piece of bread. The apartment was warm and loud and chaotic. Ryan arrived at exactly 7, still in his work clothes, but with his tie removed. He looked exhausted. How was the rest of the meeting? Emily asked, stirring the pasta. Tense. The board isn't happy about the acquisition timeline. And they're definitely not happy that I walked out mid-presentation because my kid ran away. He didn't run away. He came to find his friend. Tell that to the board. They ate on the floor again because that's where the kids wanted to be. Mason told his father about the bus ride in excruciating detail. Sophie showed off the painting she'd made at daycare. Emma threw spaghetti. It was normal. Beautifully, perfectly normal. After dinner, Ryan helped clean up while the kids played. He'd gotten better at it, no longer treating Emily's dishes like they were made of crystal. I really am sorry, he said, scraping plates into the trash. About Mason showing up like that. I didn't realize how much I'd slipped back into old patterns. It's easy to do. Life gets busy. That's not an excuse. I'm not saying it is. I'm saying I get it. Emily loaded the dishwasher. But Mason needs consistency, Ryan. You can't promise him things and then break those promises because work came up. I know. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're still choosing your company over your kid. Ryan's jaw tightened. That's not fair. Isn't it? You left a board meeting today, which is great. But what about tomorrow? What about next week when there's another crisis? I'm doing my best. Your best isn't good enough if Mason's still lonely. The words came out harsher than Emily meant them. Ryan set down the plate he was holding and turned to face her fully. What do you want me to do, Emily? Quit? Walk away from the company I built? I want you to figure out what actually matters. Because right now you're trying to have everything, and your kid is paying the price. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. The board, the investors, the thousands of employees depending on... I understand that your son ran away today to find someone who makes him feel less alone. That's what I understand. They stood there in her tiny kitchen, the tension thick enough to cut. From the living room, they could hear the kids laughing at something on TV. Finally, Ryan said, "You're right about all of it. I just don't know how to fix it. Start by keeping your promises. Even the small ones. Especially the small ones." Okay. He nodded slowly. Okay. Ryan left with Mason around 8:30. At the door, Mason hugged Emily tight and whispered, "Thank you for letting me stay." "Anytime, sweetheart. But next time, make sure your dad knows where you are, okay?" "Okay." After they left, Sophie climbed into Emily's lap on the futon. "Mommy, is Mason sad?" "A little bit, baby. He misses his daddy." "But his daddy's right there." "Sometimes people can be right there and still feel far away." Sophie thought about this, her little face serious, like how Emma's daddy is somewhere, but we don't know where. Emily's chest tightened. "Yeah, kind of like that." "I'm glad we have you, Mommy. You're never far away." Emily held her daughter close and tried not to cry. "I'll always be right here, baby. Always." The next day at work, the gossip was worse than Emily had anticipated. By lunch, half the office had heard some version of what happened. Most of the stories were wildly inaccurate. Carol cornered Emily in the break room. "So it's true? Ryan Whitmore's son ran away to find you?" "He came to see Sophie. They're friends." "Right, friends." Carol's smile was poisonous. "Must be nice having the CEO's kid so attached to you. Job security at its finest." "What's that supposed to mean?" "Just that it's convenient. You struggling single mother, him lonely widower, kids who conveniently get along. It's like a Hallmark movie. Except in real life, there's usually an angle." Emily set down her coffee carefully. "You think I'm using a 6-year-old child to secure my job? I think you're smarter than you look, and I think Ryan Whitmore is lonely enough to fall for just about anything that makes him feel needed." Emily should have walked away, should have been the bigger person. Instead, she said, "You're jealous." "Excuse me? You've been here for what, 3 years? Working your way up, playing the game, doing everything right. And then I show up with my messy life, and somehow I matter to the person you've been trying to impress. That's what this is really about." Carol's face flushed red. "You have no idea what you're talking about. Don't I? You want Ryan to notice you, to see you as more than just another employee, but he doesn't. And instead of dealing with that, you're taking it out on me. At least I'm not sleeping my way to the top." The break room went silent. 3 other employees were suddenly very interested in their lunches. Emily grabbed her coffee and walked out before she said something she'd regret. Her hands were shaking. She made it back to her desk and buried herself in work, ignoring the whispers around her. At 3 o'clock, Patricia called her extension. "Emily, Mr. Whitmore would like to see you." "About what?" "He didn't say. Can you come up?" Emily took the elevator to the 37th floor, her stomach in knots. This was it. Carol had probably gone straight to HR with some fabricated complaint. Emily was going to get fired for causing drama. But when she entered Ryan's office, he wasn't alone. There was a woman there, late 50s, sharp suit, the kind of person who looked like she ate corporate lawyers for breakfast. "Emily, this is Diane Martinez. She's on the board of directors." Emily's blood went cold. "Hello?" "Ms. Carter." Diane's smile didn't reach her eyes. "I understand you've become quite close with Ryan and his son." "Mason and my daughter are friends." "Yes, I've heard. I've also heard that Mason showed up at your home unannounced yesterday, that you're frequently at Ryan's residence, that there's been quite a bit of speculation about the nature of your relationship." Emily looked at Ryan. He was standing by the window, his expression unreadable. "I'm not sure what you're implying," Emily said carefully. "I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. The optics of this situation are problematic. Ryan is the CEO of a publicly traded company. His personal life reflects on Whitmore Technologies. And right now, the story circulating is that he's involved with an employee who received preferential treatment in hiring. I'm not involved with Ryan, and I was qualified for my position. I'm sure you were, but perception matters. And the perception is that you're using your children to manipulate a lonely widower. That's not what's happening. Again, it doesn't matter what's actually happening. It matters what people think is happening." Diane folded her hands on her lap. "I'm going to be direct, Ms. Carter. The board is concerned. We've worked very hard to rebuild Whitmore Technologies' reputation after Sarah's death. Ryan was a mess for nearly 2 years. He's finally stable again, focused on the company. We can't have another scandal." "There's no scandal. We're friends. Our kids are friends. That's all. Then it should be easy for you to step back. Stop the home visits. Keep your interactions professional." Emily felt like she'd been slapped. "You're asking me to stay away from them. I'm asking you to consider what's best for everyone involved, including your own career." The threat was clear. Emily looked at Ryan again. He was staring out the window, his jaw tight, saying nothing. "Ryan?" Emily's voice came out smaller than she wanted. "You're just going to let her say this?" Finally, he turned. "Diane has some valid concerns." "Valid concerns? She's telling me to stay away from your son. She's telling us to be more careful about appearances, which is probably smart." Emily couldn't believe what she was hearing. "So what, we just stop? Mason and Sophie can't be friends anymore because some board members are worried about optics? We don't have to stop. We just need to be more discreet. Discreet. Like I'm something shameful. Like helping your kid makes me a liability. That's not what I'm saying." "Then what are you saying, Ryan?" Diane stood up. "I think I'll give you two a moment to discuss this privately. Emily, I hope you understand that this isn't personal. We're all just trying to protect the company." She left. The door clicked shut. Emily and Ryan stood in his enormous office, the silence heavy between them. "You agree with her," Emily said, "about me being a problem. I think she makes some good points about perception. So I'm a PR issue now. That's what this is." Emily, "No, I get it. I really do. You're a billionaire. I'm nobody. The fact that we're even in each other's lives is weird. Of course people are going to talk. Of course your board is going to have opinions. It's not about you being nobody." "Then what is it about? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're choosing your company over your kid. Again." Ryan's face hardened. "That's not fair." "Isn't it? Mason ran away yesterday because he's lonely, because you keep promising things, and then work gets in the way. And now, instead of fighting for what makes him happy, you're listening to some board member tell you that his friendship with Sophie is a liability. I have responsibilities. We all have responsibilities, Ryan. The difference is that mine don't come with a board of directors telling me which people are acceptable to care about. You're twisting this, am I? Because it sounds like Diane just told you to choose between your reputation and your son's happiness. And you're actually considering it." Ryan slammed his hand on the desk, making Emily jump. "What do you want from me? You want me to quit? Walk away from everything I've built? Tell the board to go to hell and damn the consequences? I want you to fight for the people who matter. I want you to tell Diane Martinez that your son's well-being is more important than optics. I want you to actually choose Mason for once, instead of hiding behind excuses about responsibility. You don't get to judge my parenting when you're a mess yourself." The words hung in the air, ugly and cruel. Emily felt like she'd been punched. "Excuse me?" Ryan's face immediately filled with regret. "I didn't mean that." "No, say it. Say what you really think. I'm a mess, right? Single mother, 2 kids, 2 different fathers who both abandoned us. Living in a crappy apartment, taking the bus, barely scraping by. That's what you think, isn't it?" "Emily, I'm sorry. You let me into your life because I made you feel better about yourself. The rich guy helping the poor, struggling woman. But the second it gets complicated, the second it threatens your precious reputation, you throw me away. That's not what's happening." "Yes, it is. That's exactly what's happening." Emily grabbed her purse. "You know what? Diane's right. This was a mistake. I should have stayed in my lane." Emily, wait. She was already walking toward the door. Ryan followed her.
Please don't leave like this. Let me explain. Emily whirled around. Explain what? That you're embarrassed of me? That having me around makes your board uncomfortable? I already got the message, Ryan. I'm not embarrassed of you. Then prove it. Go back in there and tell Diane that Mason comes first. Tell her that you don't care what people think. Tell her that sometimes the right thing to do is messy and complicated and doesn't look good on a balance sheet.
Ryan stood there, his mouth opening and closing, but no words came out. That was all the answer Emily needed.
That's what I thought.
She hit the elevator button. Tell Mason I'm sorry. Sophie's going to be heartbroken, but I'll figure out how to explain it. Emily, the elevator doors opened. Emily stepped in and pressed the button for her floor before Ryan could follow. Back at her desk, Emily packed up her things mechanically. She had 30 minutes left in her workday, but she couldn't stay, couldn't sit there knowing what had just happened. Janet appeared at her desk. You okay? You look like you're going to be sick. I need to go home. What happened? I need to go. Emily clocked out early and went straight to the daycare. Sophie was playing with blocks in the corner. Mason was there too. The nanny must drop him off before his evening activities. When Mason saw her, his face lit up. Emily, are you taking us to the park? Emily's heart shattered. Not today, sweetheart. Tomorrow? I don't know. Maybe not for a while. Mason's smile faded. Why not? It's complicated, honey. Sometimes grown-ups have to make hard choices. But we're friends. I know. And you and Sophie will always be friends. But your dad and I, we need some space. Did I do something wrong? Is it because I came here yesterday? No, baby. No, you didn't do anything wrong. This is about me and your dad, not you. But Mason's eyes were filling with tears. I knew it. I knew you'd leave too. Everyone always leaves. The words cut deeper than anything Ryan had said. Emily pulled Mason into a hug, even though she knew she shouldn't. I'm not leaving, okay? I'm still going to be right here. You'll see me at daycare. You and Sophie can still play here. It's just the home visits. Those need to stop. But why? Because sometimes things get too complicated and people get hurt. And I don't want you to get hurt. Mason clung to her. I'm already hurt. Emily held him until the nanny came to pick him up for his piano lesson. He left without saying goodbye. His little shoulders hunched in defeat. Sophie sensed something was wrong. On the bus ride home, she asked 3 times if they were going to see Mason this weekend. Each time, Emily deflected. At home, while making dinner, Sophie said, Mason's my best friend. I know, baby. Are we not friends with him anymore? Emily set down the spoon she'd been using to stir pasta sauce. We're still friends, but sometimes friendships change. Sometimes people can't see each other as much. Did his daddy do something bad? No, well, sort of. It's complicated. You always say that when you don't want to explain. Emily looked at her daughter, smart, perceptive, too aware for a 4-year-old. Sometimes grown-ups mess things up, Sophie, and kids end up paying for it. I'm trying to make sure you and Mason don't pay more than you already have. I don't understand. I know, and I'm sorry. That night, Emily lay in bed staring at the ceiling while both girls slept beside her. Her phone buzzed. A text from Ryan. Can we talk? She deleted it without responding. Another text. I'm sorry about what I said. You're not a mess. I was angry, and I lashed out. Delete. Mason's asking for you. He won't stop crying. That one almost broke her, but she deleted it too. The last text came at midnight. Please, just tell me how to fix this. Emily stared at that message for a long time before typing. You can't. Some things are too broken. She hit send and turned off her phone. The next morning, Ryan was waiting outside her apartment building. Emily saw him through the window, leaning against his car, looking like he hadn't slept. She considered not going down, but Sophie had already spotted him. Mommy, Mr. Ryan's here. Emily took a breath and headed downstairs, leaving the girls with a cartoon. What are you doing here? She said when she reached him. I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what you said, about choosing Mason. And? You were right. I keep saying he's my priority, but my actions don't match. I let work get in the way. I let the board's opinions matter more than his happiness. Okay, So what are you going to do about it? Ryan looked at her with those tired, desperate eyes. I'm stepping down. Emily's breath caught. What? Not permanently, but I'm taking a leave of absence. 6 months. Maybe longer. Patricia can handle day-to-day operations and the board can appoint an interim CEO. I need to focus on Mason, really focus, not just when it's convenient. Ryan, you don't have to. Yes, I do, because if I don't, I'm going to lose him. I can already feel him pulling away, and I can't. His voice cracked. I can't lose him too. Emily wanted to stay angry, wanted to hold on to the hurt from yesterday. But looking at Ryan now, she saw a man who was finally putting his son first. What about the board? What about Diane? I told them this morning. Diane tried to talk me out of it, threatened to remove me permanently if I left. I told her to do what she needed to do. You might lose your company. I already lost my wife. I'm not losing my son, too. Ryan stepped closer. And I'm not losing you either. Not if I can help it. Ryan, I know I screwed up. I know I hurt you. But Emily, these past few months with you and your girls, it's the first time I've felt alive since Sarah died. Not because you fix me or complete me or any of that romance novel garbage, but because you see me, the real me. Not the billionaire, not the CEO. Just Ryan, the guy who can't cook and doesn't know how to load a dishwasher and is terrified he's failing his kid. Emily's eyes were burning. What are you saying? I'm saying I need you in my life. Mason needs Sophie. And maybe, if you'll let me, I can figure out how to be someone you need too. I don't need saving, Ryan. I've told you that. I know. That's not what I'm offering. He took her hands carefully. I'm offering partnership, friendship, someone who shows up. Not because they pity you or want to fix you, but because they genuinely care about you and your girls. The board will hate this. People will talk. Let them. Your reputation. I don't care about my reputation. I care about my son. And I care about you. Emily looked at their joined hands. She could say no, push him away, keep herself safe and protected and alone. Or she could take a chance on something terrifying and messy and real. If we do this, she said slowly, we do it right. No more hiding. No more worrying about optics. We're honest about what this is. What is it? I don't know yet, but I know it matters. To both of us. Ryan smiled, a real smile, the first genuine one she'd seen from him. That's enough for me. And you're really stepping down? Already done. I have a meeting with the board this afternoon to make it official. Wanted to tell you first. You're insane. Probably. But I'm tired of being sane and miserable. Emily laughed despite herself. Okay, but we're taking this slow. One day at a time. One day at a time. She hesitated, then asked, Does Mason know about you stepping down? Not yet. I wanted to talk to you first. Make sure you were still willing to be part of his life. Our lives. Of course I am. I couldn't stay away if I tried. Sophie would never forgive me. Just Sophie? Emily met his eyes. No, not just Sophie. They stood there on the sidewalk, neither quite sure what happened next. Then Sophie's voice came from the window above. Mommy, is Mr. Ryan coming up? Ryan looked up at her, then back at Emily. Can I come up? Yeah, come on. They climbed the 3 flights together. When they reached the apartment, Mason was there too. Apparently he'd convinced his driver to bring him over the moment he saw his dad's car. Dad! Mason ran to Ryan. Are you and Emily friends again? Ryan crouched down. We are. And buddy, I need to tell you something. I'm going to be home a lot more. Like, every day. We're going to cook dinner together and go to the park and do all the stuff I kept promising. Really? Really, I'm taking time off from work to be with you. Mason threw his arms around his father's neck. Can Sophie and Emily come over whenever we want? Ryan looked at Emily over his son's head. If they want to, then yes. Whenever they want. Sophie was already pulling Mason toward her corner of the room to show him her new drawings. Emma was making grabby hands at Ryan from her bouncer. She wants you to pick her up, Emily said. I don't really know how. You'll figure it out. Ryan picked up Emma carefully, like she was made of glass. She immediately grabbed his nose and squealed with delight. Emily watched this man who'd had everything and lost it, and was slowly, messily building something new, and felt something shift inside her chest. It wasn't love. Not yet. But it was the beginning of something that might become love, given time. And for now, that was enough. Ryan's first week of leave was a disaster. He woke up Monday morning with no meetings to attend, no emails demanding immediate attention, no reason to put on a suit. Mason was already awake, standing by the bed, staring at him like he'd sprouted a second head. "Why are you still here?" Mason asked. "I told you, buddy, I'm home now. We're going to spend time together." "But it's Monday. You're always gone on Monday." "Not anymore." Mason's face cycled through confusion, suspicion, and finally cautious hope. "What are we going to do?" Ryan had no idea. "What do you want to do?" "I don't know. What do you want to do?" They stared at each other, two people who lived in the same house but had become strangers. Finally, Ryan said, "How about breakfast? We could make pancakes." "You don't know how to make pancakes." "Then you can teach me." They went downstairs. The kitchen felt enormous and intimidating without Mrs. Chen there preparing everything. Ryan found a box of pancake mix in the pantry and read the instructions 3 times. "It says we need eggs and milk," he told Mason. "I know. I can crack eggs. Emily taught me." Something in Ryan's chest loosened at the casual way Mason said Emily's name, like she was part of their lives now, woven into the everyday moments. Mason cracked 4 eggs into a bowl, getting shell in 2 of them. Ryan fished the shells out while his son poured milk, spilling half of it on the counter. They mixed it together, the batter lumpy and too thick. "I think we messed it up," Mason said. "Probably, but let's cook it anyway." The first pancake burned. The second one was raw in the middle. The third one almost worked, except it was shaped like a blob instead of a circle. By the 4th attempt, they had something resembling an actual pancake. Mason took a bite and made a face. "It's kind of bad." "Yeah, it really is." "Can we have cereal instead?" "Absolutely." They ate cereal at the kitchen island, the failed pancakes piled on a plate between them, like evidence of their incompetence. Mason kept sneaking glances at his father like he expected Ryan to disappear. "I'm really staying," Ryan said. "I know it's weird, but I'm here." "For how long?" "As long as you need me to be." "What if I need you forever?" Ryan's throat went tight. "Then forever it is." That afternoon, Ryan texted Emily. "I burned pancakes and my son thinks I'm an alien. This is harder than running a company." She responded, "Welcome to parenting. At least the pancakes can't fire you." "Can I call you?" "I'm at work." "Tonight then?" "Okay." When Emily called that evening, Ryan was sitting in Mason's room while his son did homework. The math problems were first grade level, but they'd been arguing about them for 20 minutes. "He won't show his work," Ryan said into the phone, moving to the hallway. "He just writes down answers." "Does he get them right?" "That's not the point. The teacher wants to see the process." "Then help him write it down." "I tried. He said it's stupid because he already knows the answer." Emily laughed. "He's not wrong, but yeah, he still has to do it. Want me to talk to him?" "Would you?" Ryan handed the phone to Mason. 5 minutes later, his son was showing his work on every problem without complaint. "What did she say to you?" Ryan asked after hanging up. "That sometimes we have to do stupid stuff to make teachers happy, and that if I finish my homework fast, maybe she'll bring Sophie over tomorrow after work." "That's manipulation." "That's parenting," Mason said, echoing Emily's earlier words. Ryan called her back after Mason was in bed. "Thank you for that. I was about to lose my mind. First grade math homework is designed to break parents. It's a conspiracy." "How do you do this every day? Work and kids and homework and just all of it?" "I don't have a choice. You do it because you have to." "I chose to do this. Took a leave of absence so I could be present, and I'm already failing." "You're not failing. You made terrible pancakes on your first day." "That's not failure. That's learning." Ryan walked to the window of his study, looking out over the dark grounds. "The board officially voted me out today. Diane called to tell me personally. They're appointing Gerald Hutchins as interim CEO. He's probably going to run the company into the ground." "Are you okay?" "I don't know. I thought I'd be angrier, but mostly I just feel relieved. Is that crazy?" "No. It means you made the right choice." "Did I?" "Because I just gave up the company I spent 10 years building for a life I don't know how to live."
You gave up a job for your son. That's not the same thing. Isn't it, though? The company was everything after Sarah died. It was the only thing that made sense. Emily was quiet for a moment. Can I tell you something? Yeah.
When Sophie's father left, I thought my life was over. Not in a dramatic way, just practically. I didn't know how to be a single mother. Didn't know how to pay bills on my own or make decisions without someone else weighing in. The first month I called him 17 times, just hoping he'd answer, hoping he'd changed his mind. Did he ever answer? Once. He told me I was being pathetic and to stop calling, so I did. I'm sorry. Don't be. Because here's the thing. Those first few months were hell. I cried every night after Sophie went to sleep, ate ramen for dinner because I couldn't afford anything else, wore the same 3 outfits to job interviews because that's all I had. Emily, but then something shifted. I stopped waiting for him to save me. Stopped thinking about who I used to be when I had a partner. I figured out who I was alone. And you know what? That person was stronger than I thought. What's your point? My point is that you're going to feel lost for a while. That's normal. You're not the billionaire CEO anymore. You're just Ryan, dad, guy who burns pancakes. But that person is going to be better for Mason than any version of you that had it all figured out. Ryan pressed his forehead against the cool glass. How are you so smart about this? I'm not smart. I've just been broke and desperate longer than you have. He laughed despite himself. Can I ask you something personal? More personal than what we've already shared? Do you think, is there a chance that we could be more than friends? The silence stretched long enough that Ryan started to panic. Forget I asked. That was inappropriate. You don't have to. I think about it, Emily said quietly, about what it would be like if we were together, really together. And it terrifies me, because what if it doesn't work? What if we try and fail, and then Mason and Sophie lose each other? I can't do that to them. What if it does work? That scares me even more, because I'd have to let you in, really let you in, and the last 2 men I did that with left me alone with babies and debt. I'm not them. I know you're not, but my brain doesn't always believe what my heart knows. Ryan wanted to argue, to make promises he wasn't sure he could keep. Instead, he said, "Okay, we stay friends. For now. Until you're ready to trust that I'm not going anywhere. And if I'm never ready, then we stay friends forever. And I'll spend the rest of my life proving you wrong." Emily laughed, soft and sad. You're very stubborn. You have no idea. They talked for another hour about nothing important. Mason's homework habits, Sophie's obsession with dinosaurs, the weird smell in Emily's building's hallway, normal things, easy things. When they finally hung up, Ryan felt lighter than he had in days. The next afternoon, Emily brought the girls over after work like she'd promised. Mason had been counting down the hours, checking the clock every 10 minutes. Sophie burst through the door with her usual tornado energy. "Mason, I brought Mr. Chompers and Mrs. Chompers. They got married." Dinosaurs can get married? My dinosaurs can do whatever they want. The kids disappeared into the playroom while Emily followed Ryan to the kitchen. He'd attempted to make dinner, chicken and rice, from a recipe he'd found online. It was edible, barely. "You're getting better," Emily said, taking a bite. "You're a terrible liar." "Okay, it's pretty bad, but you tried. That counts." They ate together, all 4 of them, at the kitchen table. Emma was in a high chair throwing rice on the floor with systematic precision. It was messy and chaotic and felt right. After dinner, while the kids played, Emily helped Ryan clean up. They developed a routine. He washed, she dried, they talked about their days. "Carol got fired," Emily said casually. Ryan almost dropped the plate he was holding. "What? When?" "This morning. HR called her in. Apparently she'd been spreading rumors about several employees, not just me. Someone filed a formal complaint." "Do you know who?" "Janet thinks it was someone from accounting, but honestly, it could have been anyone. Carol wasn't exactly popular." "How do you feel about it?" Emily shrugged. "Relieved, mostly. The office is a lot less tense without her glaring at me every 5 minutes. I'm sorry you had to deal with that. With any of it. It's not your fault. Isn't it? You're only in that position because I flagged your application. The gossip, the speculation, that's on me." Ryan, stop. I'm a grown woman who made her own choices. I chose to apply, chose to accept the job, chose to bring my kids to your house. You don't get to take credit for the bad stuff and none of the good. But no buts. We're partners in this, remember? Equal responsibility for the mess. Ryan dried his hands and turned to face her fully. They were standing close in his enormous kitchen, close enough that he could see the flecks of gold in her brown eyes. Emily, Dad, Mason's voice interrupted. Sophie says dinosaurs don't eat pizza, but I think they would if they could. The moment broke. Emily stepped back, smiling. Sounds like you're needed for a debate. Apparently. Ryan went to the playroom and mediated the great dinosaur pizza debate. When he came back, Emily was on the floor with Emma, helping her stack blocks. She looked up and smiled at him, and something in Ryan's chest went warm. He was falling in love with her. Had probably been falling for months. The realization should have scared him, but it didn't. It just felt inevitable. 3 months passed. Ryan learned how to cook basic meals without burning the house down. He took Mason to school every morning and picked him up every afternoon. They did homework together, went to the park, had movie nights with blanket forts. Emily and the girls became permanent fixtures in their lives. Dinners together 3 times a week. Weekend trips to the zoo, the aquarium, the beach. Sophie's 5th birthday party in Ryan's backyard with a bouncy castle and too much cake. The board offered Ryan his position back twice. Both times he said no. Gerald's running the company into the ground, Patricia told him during one of their weekly check-ins. The acquisition fell through. Stock prices are down 15%. Investors are getting nervous. Then they should find a better interim CEO. They want you back, Ryan. I'm not ready. When will you be ready? Ryan looked at where Mason was teaching Sophie how to play chess in the living room. His son was laughing, actually laughing, at something Sophie said. Maybe never, Ryan said, and I'm okay with that. He wasn't lying. For the first time in his adult life, the company wasn't the most important thing. Mason was happy. Ryan was present. That mattered more than stock prices or investor relations. But money was getting tight. Not desperately tight. Ryan had enough saved to live comfortably for years. But he wasn't bringing in income and the bills kept coming. One night, after the kids were asleep, Emily found him in the study going over finances. You okay? She asked from the doorway. Yeah, just reviewing some numbers. She came in and looked at the spreadsheet on his screen. That's a lot of red. It's fine. I've got savings. But you're worried. A little. I've never not worked before. It feels weird not contributing. Emily sat on the edge of his desk. You know what you should do? What? Start something new. Something that actually matters to you. Like what? I don't know. What did you care about before you cared about making money? Ryan had to think about that. I wanted to make things easier for people. Technology that actually helped instead of just existing to generate profit. So do that. It's not that simple. Why not? You've got a time. You've got expertise. You've got connections even if you're not actively using them. Emily leaned forward. Ryan, you stepped away from the company to be a better father. You've done that. But you're also a person with skills and passions. You can be both. What if I fail? Then you fail, and you try again. That's how it works. Ryan pulled her closer until she was standing between his knees. How are you always right about everything? I'm not. I just have more practice being wrong. He kissed her then, soft and careful, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. Instead, she kissed him back, her hands coming up to frame his face. When they broke apart, Emily was smiling. Took you long enough. I was trying to be respectful, give you space. I appreciate that, but I'm done being scared. Yeah? Yeah? They told the kids the next weekend. Mason and Sophie were playing with Emma when Ryan and Emily called them over. We need to talk to you about something, Emily started. Sophie's eyes went wide. Are you getting married? What? No, not yet. We're not... Emily looked at Ryan, flustered. He took her hand. Your mom and I are dating. That means we're going to spend more time together. As a couple. Is that okay with you guys? Mason looked at Sophie. Sophie looked at Mason. Then they both burst out laughing. We already knew that, Sophie said. You did? You kiss when you think we're not looking, Mason added matter-of-factly. We do not... Ryan started, then stopped. Do we? All the time, both kids said in unison. Emily covered her face with her hands. Oh my God! So can we keep playing, or do you have more grown-up stuff to tell us? Sophie asked. That's it, Ryan said, trying not to laugh. That's all the grown-up stuff. Okay. Come on, Mason. Emma's trying to eat Mr. Chompers again. The kids ran off. Emily and Ryan looked at each other and started laughing. Well, that went well, Emily said. Better than I expected. They're smarter than we give them credit for. Clearly. 6 months after Ryan stepped down, he launched a nonprofit foundation. The focus was on supporting single parents, emergency childcare, job placement assistance, financial literacy courses, housing support. Everything Emily had needed when she was struggling and nobody offered. Emily helped him design the programs. She knew firsthand what worked and what didn't, what actually helped versus what looked good on paper but failed in practice. They hired small at first, just 5 employees working out of a rented office space, but word spread. Within 3 months, they were helping 50 families. Within 6 months, 200. The local news picked up the story. Then the national outlets. Billionaire trades corner office for community impact. The articles were mostly positive, though some questioned whether it was sustainable. Ryan didn't care about sustainability in the traditional sense. If the foundation helped even one family avoid what Emily had gone through, it was worth it. 1 year after they'd met in the supermarket, Ryan took Emily and the kids back to that same Shaw's. It was a Saturday afternoon, the store half empty, just like before. They walked the aisles together, the kids running ahead to look at toys. Emily grabbed groceries, real groceries now, not the bare minimum she could afford. Ryan pushed the cart. In aisle 7 near the baby formula, they saw her. Young woman, maybe 25, with an infant in one arm and a toddler clinging to her leg. She was staring at the formula prices like they were written in a foreign language. Emily stopped. Ryan stopped beside her. Should we? Emily asked quietly. I think we should. They approached carefully. The woman looked up, defensive and exhausted. Excuse me, Emily said. I don't mean to intrude, but I've been where you are and someone helped me once. Can we help you? The woman's eyes filled with tears. I can't afford all of this. My card's almost maxed out and my baby needs formula, and I don't know what to do. What's your name? Ryan asked. Jessica. Jessica, I'm Ryan, and this is Emily. We run a foundation that helps single parents. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to buy your groceries today. All of them. Get whatever you need. I can't accept. Yes, you can, Emily said firmly. And then you're going to take our card. The foundation can help with childcare, job placement, emergency funds, whatever you need to get stable. Jessica was crying openly now. Why would you do this? Emily looked at Ryan, then back at Jessica. Because someone did it for me, and now it's my turn to pay it forward. They filled Jessica's cart. Formula, diapers, food, necessities. At the checkout, Ryan paid without blinking. Jessica hugged Emily so tight she could barely breathe. Thank you, Jessica whispered. You have no idea what this means. I do, Emily said. I really do. They watched Jessica leave, her toddler waving goodbye to Sophie and Mason. The kids waved back, then went to look at a display of candy. You know what the crazy part is? Emily said, leaning against Ryan's shoulder. What? If you'd never been in this exact store on that exact night, none of this would have happened. You wouldn't have met us, wouldn't have stepped down. The foundation wouldn't exist. Jessica wouldn't have help. Butterfly effect. More than that. It's proof that one moment of kindness can change everything. You changed my life that night, and now we're changing other people's lives. It just keeps rippling out. Ryan kissed the top of her head. Best grocery run I ever made. Even though you burned those first pancakes? Especially because I burned those pancakes. Mason and Sophie ran back over, Emma toddling between them, holding both their hands. Can we get ice cream on the way home? Sophie asked. Please, Mason added. Ryan looked at Emily. She shrugged. Why not? We're celebrating. Celebrating what? Mason wanted to know. 1 year of being a family, Emily said. We're a family? Sophie's face lit up. Yeah, baby, we are. The kids cheered and ran toward the exit. Ryan and Emily followed more slowly, Emma between them, holding both their hands. I love you, Ryan said as they walked. I should have said it sooner, but I love you. Emily squeezed his hand. I love you too, even though you're terrible at making pancakes. I've gotten better. You really haven't. Lie to me. Your pancakes are the best I've ever had, Emily said in the most unconvincing voice possible. Ryan laughed, and it occurred to him that he'd been laughing a lot lately. That the weight he'd been carrying since Sarah's death had finally, slowly, lifted. He wasn't the same person he'd been in that supermarket a year ago. That Ryan had been lost, broken, going through the motions of life without really living it. This Ryan knew how to make terrible pancakes with his son, knew how to help a struggling mother without making her feel small, knew how to love someone messy and complicated and real. This Ryan was better. They got ice cream, made a mess in Ryan's car, went home and watched a movie with all the kids piled on the couch. Emily fell asleep during the second act, her head on Ryan's shoulder. Emma sprawled across her lap. Ryan looked at his living room, toys scattered everywhere, crayon marks on the walls he'd stopped trying to erase, the organized chaos of actual life happening, and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Complete. 2 years later, Ryan and Emily got married in the backyard of what had become their house. Small ceremony, close friends only. Mason was the best man. Sophie and Emma were flower girls who mostly just threw petals at each other. Janet from accounting caught the bouquet and immediately tried to give it back. The foundation staff all attended, along with Patricia, who cried through the entire ceremony. Diane Martinez was not invited. Ryan's vows made everyone cry. I thought I knew what love was, what family meant, what mattered. Then I met a woman in a supermarket who was trying to buy formula with a card that wouldn't work. And she taught me that the best things in life can't be bought or controlled or planned. They just happen when you're brave enough to show up and help and stay. Emily's vows were simpler. You showed me that some people actually keep their promises, that there are men who stay when things get hard, that money can't buy happiness, but it can buy a lot of formula, and sometimes that's exactly what someone needs. I love you for seeing me when I was invisible, for fighting for us even when it was complicated, for burning pancakes every single Saturday morning because you refused to admit you're bad at it. The crowd laughed. Ryan grinned. They kissed. The kids cheered. Emma threw more petals. At the reception, Jessica, the woman from the supermarket a year ago, came up to them. She'd found steady work through the foundation and was doing better. I wanted you to know, she said, holding her now toddler on her hip. I'm going back to school. Nursing program. The foundation's childcare program made it possible. That's amazing, Emily said, hugging her. And I've been volunteering. At the foundation, helping other mothers, paying it forward like you said. You don't have to do that, Ryan started. I want to. You gave me more than money. You gave me hope. Let me give that to someone else. After she walked away, Emily turned to Ryan. You know what we're creating, right? Not just a foundation, a whole network of people helping people. It's going to be bigger than either of us. Good. That's exactly what it should be. Mason and Sophie ran up, covered in frosting from the cake they'd definitely eaten too much of. Can we go home yet? Mason asked. My stomach hurts. That's what happens when you eat half a cake, Ryan said. Sophie ate more than me. Did not. Did too. Emily and Ryan exchanged a look. This was their life now, arguing kids and sugar highs and messes that couldn't be contained. It was perfect. Late that night, after the guests left and the kids were finally asleep, Ryan and Emily stood in the backyard where they'd gotten married. The rental company had left up the lights, and they twinkled in the darkness. I keep thinking about that night, Emily said. The supermarket. How close I came to not being in that store at that exact time. My bus was running late. I almost went to a different store. So many tiny things that could have changed everything. But they didn't. No, they didn't. She leaned into him. You know what I think about most, though? What? That you didn't have to help me. You could have walked past like everyone else did. You were tired and grieving, and you had your own problems, but you stopped. I had to. Something about you, about seeing you struggling, I couldn't not help. That's the thing about kindness, Emily said softly. It costs so little, but it changes so much. You changed my life by paying for groceries. Now we're changing hundreds of lives, and those people will change others. It just keeps going. Ripples, Ryan said. Exactly, ripples. They stood there in the dark, lights twinkling overhead, and thought about all the lives connected to that one moment. The struggling mother in a supermarket, the lonely billionaire who stopped to help, the children who became friends, the foundation that grew from understanding what real need looked like, the ripples spreading outward, touching people they'd never meet, creating change they'd never see. That was the real inheritance, Ryan thought. Not the money or the company or the mansion, but the proof that showing up mattered, that seeing people mattered, that sometimes the bravest thing you could do was offer help to a stranger who had every reason not to trust you. Ready to go inside? Emily asked. Yeah, let's go home. Home. Not his house or her apartment or some combined version of their separate lives. Just home. Where their kids slept and their life together was waiting. They walked inside together, turning off lights as they went. Tomorrow they'd clean up the mess from the wedding. Tomorrow they'd start their lives as a married couple. Tomorrow there'd be burned pancakes and homework battles and a foundation to run. But tonight, they were just two people who'd found each other in the most unlikely place against all odds and built something real. And that was enough, more than enough. It was everything. 15 years later, Ryan stood in a supermarket with his kids, all of them now, including the son he and Emily had together, and the daughter they'd adopted through the foster system. They were buying supplies for the foundation's annual gala when Mason, now 21 and home from college, nudged him. Dad, look! A young mother was at the register, her card declining, a baby crying in her arms. Ryan watched Mason walk over without hesitation, watched his son talk to the woman, offer to pay, hand her a foundation card. Easy and natural, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Sophie joined him, then their younger siblings. All of them helping, all of them kind. Emily appeared at Ryan's elbow. You see that? I see it. We did good, didn't we? Yeah, we really did. They watched their children help a stranger, continuing a cycle that started in this exact store 17 years ago. The ripples still spreading, still touching lives, still proving that one act of kindness could change everything. Ryan took Emily's hand and smiled. Some investments paid dividends forever. This one definitely had.